I like to start all my makeup applications by cleansing the skin. Here I am using the Bioderma micellar water and a cotton pad, because I want to remove any makeup residue or any impurities you might have in your skin, just before I start prepping the skin to apply foundation. Now I'm going to go in with the Fix Plus by MAC. You can actually skip this step on a daily basis if you like, but I do like to prep the skin with that, just to add that little bit extra hydration. Then I'm going to go in with a moisturizer. I am using the Embryolisse here. Please make sure that you get a moisturizer that is compatible for your skin type. Hydration is really important for oily, dry combination or normal skin. So any skin type really need to be hydrated in order to hold the foundation for the whole day. If you want a beautiful makeup that lasts the whole day, you really need to think about hydration. Make sure you select products that are suitable for your skin type, but they are also compatible in formula. So the general rule is water-based moisturizer, you can use a water-based or silicone-based foundation. If you have a silicone-based moisturizer, you can use a silicone-based foundation. Now I'm going to apply the eye cream. This is really important to keep the under eye area hydrated, because the skin under the eye is much thinner than the rest of your face. So it's quite important to keep the hydration. Even if you don't have big problems such as bag under the eyes or under eye circles, it is quite important that you keep the skin really well hydrated. Now we're going to move into sunscreen. For this tutorial, I'm using the ultraviolet, but obviously because I am a makeup artist, I carry different brands of sunscreens at times. I have an option for dry and for oily skin, but you should always find a sunscreen that works for your particular skin type and it doesn't make your makeup melt. It's very important to keep that sun protection because the sun here in Australia is really strong. And that's going to actually help avoid any further sun damage just by protecting your skin on a daily basis. If you don't have a particular sunscreen that you actually like to wear under the foundation, you can always get a foundation or a CC cream or a BB cream. They already have sunscreen in it. Now I need to think about color correction. My model has a little bit of a dark circle, so I need to look at the color wheel and check what color the dark circles are. They usually sit on the blue or on the purple side, and I need to find the color that sits on the opposite side of the color spectrum to then neutralize that. I'm going for a very light peach corrector here, just to neutralize her dark circles. If you don't have dark circles or if you don't have bags under your eyes, you can definitely skip this step. As you can see, I'm always using a palette on the back of my hand. That's for hygiene reasons. You can always put the product on the back of your hand, or you can use the product straight from the container. But just to avoid cross-contamination, I am not able to do that, so I have to use a palette. I need to pick up the product from the container with a spatula or squeeze that into a clean palette. So this way, I'm not actually carrying bacteria from one client to another. So when we're done with the skin prep, we're going to move on to foundation. I decided to use the Dior Backstage foundation. It is a beautiful water-based foundation. As you can see, I'm putting on a palette and I'm starting the application from the center of the face outwards. We always start applying the foundation from the center of the face because we usually have more blemishes in this area. So you start from the center and you drag everything out towards the hairline. The center of the face is more exposed to the sun, and we also touch our faces a little bit more in that area. So it's always best to start the application from the center and bring everything out. We want to have the highest amount of pigment covering the blemishes that sit on the center of our face, rather than just sitting around the edges. I'm not sure if you can see on my palette, but I actually pick up a very small amount of product and I start buffing that into the skin. I am a big lover of fluffy brushes to apply foundation. You don't necessarily need to use one of those. I find that works better for me, and I really like the application. I love how it looks on the skin, and that's because I like to buff the product in very small amounts at a time. With your application, just make sure you haven't deposited too much product in one spot. Everything needs to be blended really nice and seamlessly. Double check your application, buff everything in really nice and gently. You want to have the flawless looking skin. So the aim is to start with a very small amount of product and build it up as you need. Again, my model has freckles and I really want to make sure I can still see those freckles through the foundation. And don't forget to bring the color all the way down your neck because we need to make sure that everything looks like one even color. Now we're going to move into concealers. I am using the Tarte Shape Tape. It is a really nice concealer and I find particularly that it doesn't actually crease. And sometimes you don't actually have to powder, depending on what skin type you're working on. I'm just placing a bit of the product on my palette and I'm applying using this dense fluffy brush under the eye. I really like this kind of brushes for concealer. You can also use your finger or you can use a sponge if you like, but just again, make sure you're using a very small amount of the product and you're building it up as you need. This concealer is highly concentrated, so you actually don't need a lot of product. Bring the concealer around the edges of the nose or under the lips or any other places around the skin you actually need the extra little touch up. We use this technique of applying concealer under the lip just to help giving you a lip lift. So any lighter color will bring anything forward, and that really helps lifting the lip. Another good tip as well is to use the leftover product you have on your brush and apply on your eyelids. Why would you do that? Because we want to make sure everything looks like one even color. And if you're going to apply an eyeshadow during the day, you want a super natural look. Use just the leftover product you have on your brush just to even the skin color out. Because sometimes we tend to have eyelids that look a little bit more pinky, or they're a little bit darker, or they just don't match in color. Now we're just going to tidy up the brows a little bit. So I'm just using a brow gel with a disposable spoolie just to brush all the hairs up and put them in place. And this is just a good way to prep your brows and keep them looking natural. Now we're going to move to eyelashes. I use a lash curler every day. The only downside about having a lash curler is because they don't actually fit everyone's eye shape, because obviously we all have different eye shapes. Just note how I do a little squeeze motion. I squeeze the curler 5 times in each side, and that should be enough to keep your eyelashes lifted. Now we're moving to the mascara, and I use a disposable spoolie again, just because of hygiene reasons, to place the mascara. And see the movement I am doing with my hand. So that's just to cover all the lashes from root to the tip. You want to make sure you're covering all the hairs in all directions. And I really like going on the top of the lashes as well, because that helps thickening the lashes and make them look even darker. If you don't like a super dark look, or you just want a little bit of mascara, that's perfectly fine. So you can do exactly the same thing, but just apply from under the lash instead of going on top of the eyelashes as well. Now we're gonna move into a blush. I like this gel wear. They are absolutely beautiful and they blend really nicely on the skin. The easiest way to find where to place your blush is to give a big smile and see where the apples of your cheeks are. So that's the best blush placement you can find. Obviously there are new trends. Now people place more like on an angle just to lift your face, but that is just a little bit more complicated if you're just starting out. So I suggest just looking for the apples of your cheeks and apply your blush there. To finish the look, we're gonna go with some lipstick. I chose a shade that is really nice and natural. It matches her skin tone and you don't need to overly apply as well. You see here, I placed a little bit of the product on my palette, and from my palette, I am applying it on the client. Obviously, you're not going to be doing that at home. You're going to be going straight from the lipstick to your lips, because obviously you're not at risk of cross-contamination. So my suggestion is to go with a very light natural color, unless you really like a very bold look. Select the color that suits your skin tone, matches your blush, and matches what you're going to be wearing on the day. Also think about something that's easy to reapply during the day. Now to finish the look, if you sit more on the oilier side, I would suggest applying some translucent powder just to finish the makeup.